shattered to unbreakable. Listen here, sweet sister. Whether you think you have one little crack or you are shattered into a billion pieces, this podcast is going to give you the resources, tools, and skills to help piece yourself back together to form a beautiful, unique, solid, and unbreakable masterpiece. You are listening to Shattered to Unbreakable, the Reclaim podcast. Let's talk. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Shattered to Unbreakable. I'm your host, Brandi Babin, and it's been a minute. I am so sorry, but I have been MIA since our last episode, August 13th. I just checked, it was aired. So literally the whole semester without an episode. I'm sure you can imagine it's hard to record when you have 3 classes online, plus a family and a full-time job. So I'm giving myself grace, but I really missed you guys. And I hope you missed me too. I am back for a whole new season. I have 4 weeks off for break. However, I'm going to try to record more than just that 4 weeks worth of episodes so that you have something to listen to while I start my next semester. I will be graduated in a year with a bachelor's in psychology, which is so exciting. And then I will move on to a master's. And you guys are going to benefit from everything I've learned and will learn along the way. So now I have a year and a half, I believe, of psychology under my belt, and everything I've learned I'm going to be giving to you. So I'm going to take little tidbits that I think are going to apply to you, and then I'm also going to take little tidbits that I've learned from my experiences along the way. I've been through a lot since we've last talked. I moved. As you can see, if you're watching the video, I'm in my new house, and I've tried dating. That didn't really work out very well, but I'll tell you all about it. I'm at a point right now where I don't even want to date. Just sounds awful to me. So whoever the next person is going to have to try real hard, but really hard. So anyways, I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about why it took me so long to get on here and do another episode. Because if I'm being honest, I've had times where I could hop on here and record, but I haven't. And most of that is my perfectionist self who wanted it to be absolutely perfect for you before I recorded something. And I wanted all the facts, and I wanted to make sure that I was credible. And I felt like in those moments where I was in the ups and downs of emotions, ups and downs of dating, ups and downs of parenting, ups and downs of career, it's been a lot of riding the wave. And I felt like I had to be in this perfect spot in order to speak to you all about it. And I actually did this warrior woman retreat. And it's all about just holding yourself accountable, being a part of a community of other women who are doing the same radical truth and radical work to just become the best version of yourself, better than you even thought you could be, which I love. Of course, you guys know this. I'm a self-development freak. That's why I do this. And so I was really excited to take on this challenge and go to this retreat. And I'm in a community to keep up with it afterwards. And one of my goals is to record another podcast, to put out a blog, all of those things. And they're like, well, why aren't you? Why haven't you? I'm like, I just can't. I don't want to get on there and say something that won't help, or I don't want to get on there and say something before I know it all. Maybe I shouldn't even do another episode till after I get my degree. And so I've just all of these questioning myself, questioning my credibility, questioning what I know and don't know. Because of course, as you guys know, the more you learn, the more you find out you don't know. Luckily, most of what I've talked about on the podcast has been dead on for what I'm learning, which is great. That just tells us that life experience is the best teacher, right? And psychology is literally just solidifying everything I've learned through my life experiences. So that's been good to learn. But there's still this part of me that's I don't want to share unless I know for sure it's going to help someone. And the girls on the community were like, you have to keep going. They're counting on you. You have listeners. And I do. And I thank you guys so much. There are regular listeners waiting for this next episode. And so I just was like, you know what? You're right. I just need to record something, even if it isn't perfect. And that's what led me to this episode. I'm just going to talk about perfection and how unattractive it actually is. And it's funny because I was sitting at the gym. I'm actually going to pull it up on my phone. I took a picture. I was at the gym that same day that those girls were like, no, you just have to do it. And I had a revelation during that call where I was like, you know what? Maybe my silence is hurting my audience more than an imperfect message. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it felt true to me at the time, and it kind of does still. Like, me not being here for you guys is worse than me saying something that maybe is emotional at the time, or maybe I'll need to correct later. And so I saw this picture. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's the little dragon from How to Train Your Dragon. He's hanging upside down. And it says, "I'm just saying, in the immortal words of the mighty Thor, when something looks too perfect, it probably sucks." So I was like, oh my gosh, sitting there at the calf raise machine looking at this, like, okay. And then I was also hearing women say on this call, I actually refuse to work with people who look too perfect because I don't believe it. It's not relatable. Like, I feel like if I were to have a conversation with somebody who's too perfect, or, too high of status or whatever, it's uncomfortable to me. I can't be myself. I can't be vulnerable. I just feel like I've got to kind of bury it. They'd rather work with somebody who's not perfect. And one of the gals even said, I refuse to hire a trainer who's like ripped. I was like, really? She's like, yeah, I want somebody who's real, like that's actually working on getting better, and that, you see progress. Like, yes, they've lost 100 pounds, but they're also not ripped, because I feel like they're going to understand my journey better than somebody who's just been ripped their whole life and like went into fitness because that's what they've always done, and they've been an athlete and it just comes easy for them. Like, they're not going to understand my struggle and my journey like somebody who's been down that road before. I was like, wow, okay, that makes sense. So I've also done human design readings. You guys know this. I did, how does it relate to my business? My friend Jamie was so smart. She went on ChatGPT and was like, hey, let's see how your human design relates to your reclaim business. Let's do that. And it literally said everything that I'm doing. Everything that I'm doing. And it felt so good to have that validation. So what that told me was that you guys aren't expecting me to be perfect. And in fact, it's kind of annoying maybe if I am, which is very good news because I am so far from it. And so it gave me permission to speak my experiences and my stories and what I've learned from trial and error. It gave me permission to speak on what I've learned in psychology courses, even though I don't have the page number and the reference to give you. And I can teach you how to apply these to real life because I have been. And there are areas in my life where it's working beautifully. And then there are areas in my life where it's like, this is unrealistic in our world. That's how is this even going to play out? So basically, I'm going to be your guinea pig for all of the self-development that I'm learning and all these tools and tactics and strategies, so that as I level up, you're leveling up with me. We're just going to keep going on this journey together. So I'm really excited for that. So let's talk about people pleasing, perfection. How do we even get there? I first want to talk about truth versus facts. This is something that was awakened in me at this retreat. Truth versus facts. We are taught in social media and in the society as it is today to know your truth and speak your truth and hold your truth. It's yours. Nobody can take it from you. Yes, that is true. You have your truth. And then you have facts. Facts and truth are different. This was like an aha moment for me. Facts are what is actually happening. It's the evidence in the world, in your circumstance, in your environment, that's actually happening. Your truth is what you believe about the facts, or what you believe about your emotions or feelings or situation. I can think of an example to give you. Like, if you're in a relationship and your partner says something and you take it a certain way, and your truth is that they are mean or they were trying to hurt you to be mean, and the facts are that they just said it not even realizing, like, they didn't even have an intention to it, but you took it that way. So your truth is that you're hurt, and that is valid. You're hurt, and your feelings matter. And you are encouraged to tell that person, hey, what you said hurt me, and here's why, here's where that comes from. And it would really help me if you didn't do that again, the way that you did it. And if you do want to communicate something like that to me, here's a better way to word it so that I don't get offended. And that's you speaking your truth. The fact is that something was said. That's it. That's that simple. Like, something was said. How you choose to interpret it, or how you do interpret it based on past experience is your truth. The fact is just that there was something said. This goes back to my favorite saying of like, nothing good happens to you and nothing bad happens to you. Things just happen. And then you decide what to do from there. Because good and bad things happen to everyone. There's that Chinese parable that I think I've told you guys a million times, so I'm sorry if it's a repeat. But there's a Chinese farmer, and my boss just sent this to me the other day, and I was like, yes, I love this story. Chinese farmer, he's got this horse. It gets out, right? And his neighbors are like, oh, how unfortunate. And he's like, perhaps. And then the horse brings back 7 other stallions with it the next day. And his neighbors are like, oh my gosh, how fortunate. And he's like, perhaps. And then his son was trying to break one of the horses the next day and fell off and broke his leg. And his neighbors were like, oh, how unfortunate. He says, perhaps. And then the next day, the imperial army comes around and starts collecting the firstborn to go fight this war. Well, his son can't go because he has a broken leg. His neighbors say, how fortunate. The farmer says, perhaps. So it's just this thing where it's like, yes, things are going to happen and it'll always be this chain of events, but you just get to choose how to look at it. Like, yeah, it could be fortunate, could be unfortunate. We really don't know. We just do the next right thing. That's always been my message to you guys, is just the next right thing. But the key to this is the difference between truth and fact. When you are feeling your truth, it is yours. It's okay to feel it and validate it, and then you look at facts. And there's something we learned in this warrior program called a stack. My favorite thing about the stack is that it asks you to name your trigger and tell the story of why it triggered you. This is your story that you told. After you've told your story, then you go through the story and say, okay, what is factual evidence that this is true? And you get to name the facts. And here's the part where it flips, is what story do you want? What is your desired story? So then you tell the story you want. And then it says, okay, what evidence, factual evidence do you see that supports that? And here's the craziest thing about psychology that I learned. And it's both maddening and uplifting and depressing at the same time. Like maddening, depressing, uplifting, and hopeful. Psychology, your life is literally just the story you tell yourself. That is exactly what you will get. This broke my heart because when I look at the amount of years I spent telling the victim story, and then the victim story just kept happening. I found a way to be the victim in every single situation that happened. When my car got stolen, poor mom, single mom, 4 kids, can't buy another one. Insurance won't give me what it's worth. And I lost my job over it because I had a job where I had to drive all the time. And that was my victim story. But what I didn't tell is like the victor story. That job was a crappy ass job. Sorry, I cussed. That job was a crappy job that I was working for really gross, nasty people. I hated that job. It released me from that. I got a new car. We found a unicorn of a deal, and she's still running and looking good to this day. And I had friends who came to my rescue and did a GoFundMe. So I didn't have to like take a second job to pay for this car. I own it outright. I don't owe anything on it. And before that, I had owed a personal loan on the car I had before. Well, that was completely paid off and wiped clean. Now I own my car. So now it's an asset versus a debt, right? And then what else came out of that? The guy who stole my car had to send me money, and it's literally come at exactly the right time every time. So I could look at this car situation as like the super unfortunate thing that happened, or I could just say, perhaps. And then later on, I get a new car that I own. I don't have debt. I get random checks in the mail every 6 months for whatever damage he caused. And that is like, people could say, well, that's fortunate. Perhaps, but is it? Like, it's just happening. It just happens. And the cool thing about life is the story I'm telling myself now is that things happen and I get to choose what to do next. And that puts the pen in my hand and it allows me to trust God and his direction and know that anything that comes my way that maybe doesn't seem like it's from him, he just allowed it so that I could learn something. and that I will learn something because I'm looking for the lesson now. I'm not looking for the tears. I'm not looking for the pity. I'm not looking for the handout. I'm looking for the lesson. And it's such a great way to go through struggle with these breakups and in the dating scene. And I'm like, okay, what's the lesson? Because I could keep going through the victim thing. Like, there's been some crazy stuff that's happened while I've been trying to date. And so I could look at it as more of this victim thing, but I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm looking for the lesson. Now I know more red flags to see. Now I know what to look for. Now I know what I won't tolerate. Now I know what I won't tolerate for my kids. Now I know when I'm being lied to. So aggravated by that. And now I get to choose who to trust, which is really cool. I get to choose who to give my heart to because I've learned what that looks like. So if I could give you one lesson for this podcast episode, is that perfection is not desirable and it's not relatable and nothing has to be perfect. It just has to show progress. You just have to do the next right thing. And the best part about doing the next right thing and the way to guide yourself for the most beneficial outcome is going to be to watch what story you're telling yourself. Separate truth from fact. Your truth is still valid. You don't have to invalidate it by any means. You just have to say, okay, this is my truth and the story I'm telling myself right now. What facts back that up? And is this story going to serve me tomorrow? If it's not, and if there aren't very many facts to back this up, I want to change my story. So instead of I'm not lovable and I attract only addicts and bad men, that could be my story. And then I will live that for the rest of my life if I make it that. But the truth, the facts in that is I have dated 2 people who were able to hide their addiction from me. And they lied to me. Those are the facts. Now, my new story is I have so many tools and so many skills to sniff this out now. And I can now recognize those gut intuition feelings that I ignored. And now I can listen to them. And so the facts of that is I knew the whole time. I knew there was something in me that was like, that doesn't seem right. It feels like he's lying. That doesn't seem right. It feels like he's trying to make up for something. That doesn't seem right. It feels like he's avoiding me for some reason. That doesn't seem right. It feels like he's hiding something. I was right the whole time. I was right. So facts are, is I was right. My intuition was gold. And now I know what to look for. I know to follow it. And I know to sayonara. I know the manipulations they try to say when you say goodbye. I know how they try to get you back. I know so much because I'm looking for the lesson and I will apply it to the next one. This is a perfect example of imperfect episode because I can tell you full transparency. I wanted the message to be more about people pleasing and perfection and doing something when you're not ready and trusting that God will speak through you. And instead it became about facts and truths because I looked at my phone and read the wrong sentence. But I'm going to air this anyway. And I hope that it speaks to you. And I will plan out my podcasts very well, and you will get credible advice from me based on what I've learned and the experiences I've gone through. I will have amazing guests on for you, and I'm so excited for the next season. So thank you for sticking with me. I appreciate all of you who've been there since the beginning. Keep going back, listen to all the episodes. They all have really good nuggets in them, especially the guests, because, oh my gosh, I've had some experts on this show, which I have loved learning from, and I will have them back and even more to come. So I love you all. Thanks for listening. We'll talk next time. Stay sparkly. Thanks for hanging out with us today. I just wanted to remind you about the resources we have on the reclaimstrategy.com. That is Reclaim University with free downloads. It's the Reclaim Guidebook, access to Kintsugi classes and events. So go ahead and take a look. Also, please share this podcast with anybody that you think might need to hear these messages. And if you haven't already and you think we deserve it, give us a 5-star rating. That just helps our reach. So I love you guys. Stay sparkly, and we will see you next week.